Okay. Ashish and Grishma, please switch on your videos. Amal Kesaji went to watch the match and didn't come back. Okay. Shall we do a small dictation from the portion which I asked you to learn? Hmm? Okay, take your book. Please don't copy and write. Write whatever you know. We'll correct afterwards. Okay. You will correct your paper. So be truthful to yourself. Hmm. What happened to you yesterday, Ashish? Hmm? I cannot hear you. Okay, anyways, we'll start without wasting time. Was there any issue or nothing? Show me action. Mime. Ah, fever. Or slept. Fever. Did you see how he showed me? Show once more, Ashish. Okay, are you all right now? Okay, fine. Okay, first word. Ready, everyone? Okay, first word. Depersonalization. You read, spell it and write. So pronounce it and write. Depersonalization. And then when you write sation, it can be S or Z. Both are right. S or Z. Both are right. Okay. Depersonalization. Break down the words and write, then it'll be much easier. Next one. Dissociative. 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 Next one. Somatic. Somatic. Next one. Trauma. Trauma. Next one. Amnesia. Amnesia. Conversion. 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 Preoccupation. Preoccupation. Next word. Preoccupation. After conversion, preoccupation. Preoccupation. After preoccupation, fugue. As in dissociative fugue. Just write fugue. 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 Obsessions. 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 So next would be compulsions. Compulsions. Obsessions, then compulsions. Persistent. 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 Next word. Diagnostic. 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 Don't break it down as in Malayalam. Diagnostic. Don't do that. You'll confuse yourself. Diagnostic. Derealization. Next one. Derealization. 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 Finished? That's enough. So you'll tell me each word. I'll write the spelling on the board. If I get it wrong, correct me. Okay. First one. Please check your answers. First one. Which is the first one?
Depersonalization.
Depersonalization. Depersonalization. Please open the book also. Check the spellings. I told you. If I'm wrong, correct me too. Next one. Next word.
Dissociative.
After a long time. Dissociative. Dissociative. Dis. Then as in social, you have to write sociative. Tive. Dissociative. Okay. Next one.
Somatic.
Somatic. Soma and tick. No TICK. Only TIC. Somatic. Then
Trauma.
trauma. Trauma. TRAUMA. Trauma. Next.
Amnesia.
Amnesia. AMNESIA. Amnesia. AMNESIA. Amnesia. It's like sia but without H. We say amnesia. Okay. As in Asia. For Asia, there is no H, right? Just like that. Here also no H. AMNESIA. Then next one.
Conversion.
Conversion. Conversion. Sneha, next word.
Preoccupation.
Preoccupation. Long word. Shall I change the page? Shall I take a fresh one? Okay. Preoccupation. Preoccupation. Then
Fugue.
fugue. Very confusing spelling. You might write like this. That's wrong. You have a few. G-U-E. Isn't this the spelling? Fugue. F-U-G-U-E. Fugue. Then
Obsession.
obsession. O-B-S-E-S-I-O-N. If you know the spelling of session, this is very easy. Obsession.
Compulsion.
Compulsion. Yeah. There is a chance to make this wrong. You might write this U there. Okay. Compulsion. Not pelsion. It's compulsion. Obsessive compulsive.
Persistent.
Persistent. P-E-R-S-I-S-T. What is the next one? E or A?
A-N-T.
A-N-T or E-N-T?
I don't know. Sorry.
Check. This is something that you make a mistake all the time.
E-N.
E-N-T. That's E-N-T. It's not persistent. We have a tendency to write A-N-T always. That's why it's not related to any specific disorder. I mean, we can't say this word or this term is related to only one particular disorder, but we use that. Persistent, low mood, then persistence of symptoms, everything. Okay. So this is a common word, uh, the spelling of which you should know. This persistent. Okay. Then next one.
Diagnostic.
Diagnostic. Diagnostic. Again, there is no CK, only C. Diagnostic. You have a chance to add an A and all here.
Derealization.
Wait a minute. Half of this is eaten up. Okay. After this, derealization. Is that the one? Okay. Derealization. Then, that's it. Finish checking. Okay. Don't tell me the whole score, but how many of you got more than 5 mistakes? How many words were there in total?
13.
13. Okay. How many of you got more than 5 mistakes? Okay. No need to raise your hands. If you have got, then please write and study the spellings, especially these words. Okay. Please write down. Otherwise, it will be very problematic. And one more thing. Okay. So dictation is over. Now oral test. Close your books. Close. Who wants the first one? Hmm. Meghna. Under which category of disorders does trichotillomania come?
Obsessive compulsive disorder.
Obsessive compulsive and related disorders. Okay. And what is trichotillomania?
It's the hair pulling disorder.
Hair pulling disorder. Okay. Now, next question. Sneha. What do you call the skin picking disorder? What is the name given for that?
Um, wait a second.
Hmm. I know it's a tough one, but try. Give it a try.
Um,
Just tell me something very similar to it.
With um, I know that one.
You know, it's in
Yes,
the
no,
tip
but
of
I
your
don't.
tongue.
Um, um,
Let's try Q recall. X starts with X.
exor,
X
exor,
or dishwash
ex,
bar.
exorciation.
Excoriation or exorciation. Okay. The spelling is EXCORIATION. Okay. I usually pronounce it as excoriation. I don't know if there is any other pronunciation for that. Excoriation. Okay. That is called, that is the name for skin picking disorder. Okay. That also comes under OCD and related disorders. Fine. Next question. Hmm. What all are included in somatic symptom and related disorders? Elvina,
Somatic disorder and illness, anxiety disorder and conversion disorder.
is it somatic disorder alone or somatic symptom disorder?
Somatic symptom disorder.
Okay. Then next question, Sana. What was the old name for dissociative identity disorder? Famous. Think of Ganga. Hmm. You also need a clue. Lifeline. Phone a friend. You want a clue?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. I'll give the short form. You have to expand. MPI. Sorry. MPD. Isn't it MPD? God. Ah.
Multiple personality.
Multiple personality disorder. Don't forget that. It's very important. Multiple personality disorder. That term is not in use now. We call it dissociative identity disorder. DID. Under dissociative disorders. Okay. Now, what is dissociative fugue? Dishma. Fugue. Dissociative fugue.
Yes, ma'am.
Dissociative fugue.
When this can happen when people move on from some place or they go to a new workplace.
Hmm.
Um, the assumption of a new identity
Hmm.
and the inability to recall the previous identity.
Okay. Dissociative amnesia might occur together with this. Dissociative fugue. Okay, fine. Now, Ashish, what is the full form of PTSD? PTSD. Huh? You was absent. What? Type the answer. I cannot hear. Or if you want, you can mime also. No problem. You was absent yesterday and you did not learn. Is that what you're trying to say? Yes? Okay. Amal.
Post traumatic stress disorder.
Okay. Under which category did we learn that? Hmm. It's there in that word itself. Post traumatic stress disorder. So trauma and
Ma'am, trauma and stress. related disorders.
Trauma
Stress
and
related
stress related
disorders.
disorders. Trauma and stress related disorders. Okay. Now, who did not get a chance? Aishwarya. Okay. What is conversion disorder?
In conversion disorder, can I think?
That was fast. Okay. Think. Very confidently say. In conversion disorder. Okay. Wait a minute.
Um,
Hmm.
in conversion disorder, people assume they have uh, some disease, but not that. I don't remember right now.
Under which category did we learn that? Conversion.
Somatic stress disorders.
Somatic? Somatic
Somatic symptoms and
ah,
somatic symptoms disorder.
and somatic symptom and related disorders. Okay. And under that, which all did we learn? Illness, anxiety, conversion, one more. Somatic symptom disorder. Isn't it? We learned only three, right? Yes. So what is illness, anxiety? Tell me that.
In illness anxiety, people always have an anxiety about an undiagnosed disease.
Yes. Okay. And what about the other one? Somatic symptom?
People have uh,
Symptom without a
physical symptoms without a physical disease.
cause, physical cause or organic cause. Without the organic cause, they'll show the symptoms. And even if the doctors say that they don't have, even if the reports say that they don't have a disease, they will not agree to that. So, what would be conversion disorder? If this is coming under this category, what is converted into what? Oh, can you give me or give us some examples of it?
Ma'am, I don't remember.
How many times did I tell ma'am? I don't remember. Can somebody help her?
It is mainly reported with the loss of blindness, deafness, or not able to walk.
Loss of blindness.
Blindness?
Loss of blindness, is that correct?
No.
Then don't get scared. Relax and tell.
Blindness, deafness, and not able to walk.
Blindness, deafness, and not
Not
able
able
to walk. Okay, which means paralysis. Now, do you remember, Aishwarya? Yes, then explain what are conversion disorder. Imagine all of this did not happen. Okay, we are going back to the moment where I asked the question to Aishwarya. Okay. Well, Aishwarya, next question to you. What are conversion disorders?
People imagine that
Hmm.
a part of their body's function has been lost.
Hmm. Is it
Example,
because of the problems in their imagination?
it is their thought.
It is that disorder symptom. It's not about that one day I'm sitting bored and I'm imagining I have lost my vision or I have lost my hearing capacity. Okay, it's not imagination. Don't use that word. Okay, I'll read out that. The symptoms of conversion disorders are the reported loss of part or all of some basic body functions. So the main symptom is the patients or the clients report that, or the people suffering from this disorder report that they have lost a part of their body or maybe a body function. Understood? It's been so many days since we have laughed like this in the class, no? Okay, that's enough. Now we'll go back to our therapy. Leave all the disorders there. We are in the treatment mode. Come back. Psychodynamic. What all did we learn in the last class? We learned about transference. We learned about the basic analytical methods, that is dream analysis and also free association. I hope that's clear. Which are the two types of transference? Um, mm, Raina, two types of transference. Very easy, just the names. Like two types of reinforcement, we have two types of transference. Don't turn the book. Tell me, which are the two types of reinforcements? Reinforcement, negative and
Positive.
so transference also similar. It would be
Negative and positive.
positive and negative transference. What is positive transference, Elvina?
In that, if a person is anger issues to
Okay. Transference is from whom to whom? Tell me that. The rest I'll ask to somebody else.
it is from the past feeling to the someone in the present.
Okay. It is from somebody in the past to somebody in the present. So in psychodynamic therapy, from whom to whom is the transference? Like who is transferring to whom?
From the client to the therapist.
Client to the therapist. Okay, that's enough. Now, Sneha, tell me. What is positive transference?
It's
What
when
type
a
of
client, yeah, it's when a client develops a feeling towards the therapist.
what kind of feelings are developed in positive transference?
Good feeling, like it can be love
Hmm. Good feelings. It's positive. No? So good feelings. Okay, love.
or a friendship more than
Friendship.
what a therapy and client is needed
Yes.
upon.
Okay. So what about negative transference? Mm. Hannah, negative transference, opposite.
Anger. They'll feel the client will feel anger or hostility towards the therapist.
Towards a therapist. Anger, hostility, and all those hostile feelings, they are projected or transferred into the therapist. And why does this happen? Because the client might have had somebody in the past to whom the client felt the same but could not express. So all these kind of feelings, they are being collected in which part of the mind? Where does
Unconscious.
all the repressed things will go into the unconscious part of the mind. So the in psychoanalytical therapy or psychodynamic oriented therapy, we are trying to pull that unconscious part into the conscious awareness of the client. So obviously there will be anxiety. Yesterday I told you there will be anxiety when this unconscious is trying to jump to the conscious level. Okay, there will be anxiety in the client. Then what happens is the client will start to show resistance. Like I don't want my unconscious part to be conscious, and this thing all does not occur completely in awareness of the person. There are two types of resistance. We'll see that. Take page number 95. Yes, the process of transference is met with resistance. Since the process of transference exposes the unconscious wishes and conflicts, thereby increasing the distress levels, the client resists the transference. Okay, when the transference occurs, what happens again? If you're taking the case of this punitive father, yesterday I told you about this punitive father, and the client could not express his or her feelings to the father during the childhood period. So now the client is projecting or transferring all those pent up feelings towards the therapist here. All those hostile feelings, the fear, then the hostility, then aggression, everything towards the therapist. So now the client is getting a feeling that something is not right. They are getting anxious about this whole process. Okay, to prevent this transference, resistance comes. Transference is in play in the therapeutic relationship. Then resistance comes from the side of the client to resist this whole process of transference. Now, Grishma, please read that portion just after the line where I stopped.
The
Due,
process of transference is met with resistance. That line.
due to resistance from there.
Due to resistance, the client opposes the progress of therapy in order to protect herself or himself from the recall of painful unconscious memories. Resistance can be conscious or unconscious.
Underline that. Resistance can be conscious or unconscious. Okay, before we read, how can it be conscious? Like if you're resisting the therapy, if you're resisting the sessions, what would you do? Suppose if you're a client and if you're going to a therapy and you can feel the presence of transference, you can feel that something is going to happen. So how will you resist therapy? What will you do?
Will not go.
You'll not go. Then I'm asking you about your father, I mean, if taking the example of that punitive father, if you are that client, if I'm asking about the father, will you open up? No, you'll keep on hiding things from me purposefully. There is also conscious resistance. Now, unconsciously, it might happen like you might forget to come for therapy. It's not on purpose. On purpose, also, you can do. You know that you have to go for therapy, but you don't go. That is a form of conscious attempt, but unconsciously also this happens. Like you forget to come for therapy. You know that you have to attend therapy. You have already thought of going for the therapy the next day, but during that period of time, you just forget it. You miss it somehow. Okay, the examples are given. Grishma, please continue.
Conscious resistance is present when the client deliberately hides some information. Unconscious resistance is assumed to be present when the client becomes silent during the therapy session, recalls trivial details without recalling the emotional ones, misses appointments, and comes late for therapy sessions. The therapist overcomes the resistance by repeatedly confronting the patient about it and by uncovering emotions such as anxiety, fear, or shame which are causing the resistance.
Yes, underline those two sentences. Confrontation is another method that we learned just now. In the under the heading modality of therapy, we are learning two treatment methods. One was transference, the other is interpretation. In interpretation, we do two techniques, that is confrontation and clarification. Okay, just look at the board. I'll make the picture even more clear. Okay, so in psychodynamic therapy, what happens is we have the transference. I told you, let it be T. T for transference. Okay, transference is in play. So the transference is allowing the unconscious material to jump. See, these are the three levels. Okay, so unconscious material is trying to jump into the conscious level during the transference, isn't it? Yes, agree? Yes. Now, this whole thing happens inside the client's mind. Is it not? So to resist this process, there will be resistance in the middle. This resistance prevents the unconscious to come to the conscious level. Did you understand? Okay, when transference occurs, this unconscious material will be coming into the conscious level. So when the client becomes aware of it, or when the client's mind gets clues regarding this process, what happens is resistance comes in middle. The mind sends the resistance in the middle. Then what should the therapist do? The therapist should confront. Confront means, again, what do you mean by the term confront? Generally, what does that mean? To confront something?
To open up, tell
Uh,
something about which is not told.
Yeah, more deep. In one context, that is also right. But generally, when we say the word confront, what do you mean?
To settle up or to
Settle up in the sense?
Face to face.
Face to face, yes, kind of. It's like I confronted with an accident. It's like I met with an accident. Or that's not the correct usage, but still. It's the meaning is to meet face to face. Or to meet in front of. That is the thing. So here confrontation means again the whole process. Transference is happening unconscious to conscious. The material is trying to jump. And in the middle, who came? The resistance came. And then the therapist is the one who has a role in resisting the resistance. That is removing this resistance part. So for that, what should the therapist do? The therapist should confront. That is come in face to face. It's like R is facing this side, no? Is it my imagination? Or can you also see? Do you feel like R is turned towards this side? I mean, if R was a human, is it facing the left side? Can you feel so? If not, just imagine. Okay, so the therapist has to do confrontation. Confrontation means the therapist tries to point out that such and such unconscious material is there from whatever we have understood from the psychoanalytical methods, that is free association, dream analysis, and from the transference. I have interpreted there are two types of interpretation: confrontation and clarification. So in confrontation, we are pointing out, as therapists, we are pointing out that such and such material is there. If it is in the case of the punitive father, which we told about, we can tell them that the pent up feelings in your mind about your father, that is hostile feelings towards your father, is coming up now, and that is what you're showing towards me. You can confront them with these facts about whatever we have studied from the case. So confrontation is done, and also clarification. We add clarification to material. Whatever things are unclear or vague, 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 as in fugue, similar. Yes, we clarify and we clear all the doubts. Okay. They might be confused. Suppose we tell them that this is the punitive father's, I mean, the pent up feelings for the punitive father that you had in the childhood. That is what is coming into consciousness now. That is why you are having these problems. That is why this whole process occurs. That is why you're in therapy now. If we tell that to somebody, they might not accept it at once, and they might be confused in a lot of things also. It's not necessary that they understand everything as we tell them. So we have to clarify it to them. We have to clarify whatever is happening all through the process. It's not a one step or two step process, this clarification and confrontation. We have to do this all through the therapy. Whenever this client is showing resistance, we have to confront and clarify. Whenever this transference occurs, also we have to interpret, confront, clarify. So transference, resistance, confrontation, clarification happens all through the therapy. When this happens, when this resistance happens and we try to clarify and we try to confront them, that process is called working through. You have that in the bolded letters, 95, page 95. Working through. The repeated process of using confrontation, clarification, and interpretation is known as working through. Working through helps the patient to understand herself or himself and the source of the problem, and to integrate the uncovered material into her or his ego. You have to think from a philosophical perspective because you are learning it for the first time, no? So I hope you'll read this a few times, and then only at least 80% will be clear. Okay. I've studied this for 5 years, so I can understand it now. Okay. I'll tell you once more. So, even erase it. Okay. So, we already uh, identified the problem, main problems of the client using free association dream analysis. Okay. Then, during the therapy, the client is showing transference. And we discussed yesterday that transference is therapeutic in nature, which means we have to, as therapists, we have to encourage transference to occur so that the client is able to become aware of his or her problem. Okay, till that it's clear, right? And we have two types of transference. Now, when transference comes, I told you the unconscious material jumps into the conscious level. It's trying to jump into the conscious level. It's um, starting to act in the conscious awareness of the client. Then the client itself, the client's mind itself resists this process. So break comes here. The unconscious material is not able to jump into the conscious level. So resistance is shown by the client. After that, what happens? As therapists, what should we do? We have to interpret this whole thing. What is happening? And we interpret that in two ways. One is by confrontation, and the other one is by, which was the other one? Clarification. And please take again page number 95. See the first paragraph on the right side. Should you please read that? Confrontation and clarification.
Interpretation is the fundamental mechanism by which change is effected. Confrontation and clarification are the two analytical techniques of interpretation. In confrontation, the therapist points out to the client an aspect of her or his psyche that must be faced by the client. Clarification is the process by which the therapist brings a vague or confusing event into sharp focus. This is done by separating and highlighting important details about the event from unimportant ones.
You can underline those points. So clarification, making something clear and more sharp. What is confrontation? Allowing the client to meet with the concept that he or she is escaping from. In resistance, what happens? They're trying to escape from that material, isn't it? They're trying to escape from that unconscious material, which is trying to be conscious. So actually, we are trying to resist the resistance by doing clarification and also confrontation. Okay, continue.
Interpretation is a more subtle process. It is considered to be the pinnacle of psychoanalysis. The therapist uses the unconscious material that has been uncovered in the process of reassociation, dream interpretation, transference, and resistance to make the client aware of the psychic contents and conflicts which have led to the occurrence of certain events, symptoms, and conflicts. Interpretation can focus on intrapsychic conflicts or on deprivations suffered in childhood. The repeated process of using confrontation, clarification, and interpretation is known as working through. Working through helps the patient to understand herself or himself and the source of the problem and to integrate the uncovered material into her or his ego.
Then continue. Next is insight.
The outcome of working through is insight.
Tired?
No.
Okay.
Insight is not a sudden event, but a gradual process wherein the unconscious memories are repeatedly integrated into conscious awareness. These unconscious events and memories are re-experienced in transference and are worked through. As this process continues, the client starts to understand herself or himself better at an intellectual and emotional level.
Yes, wait, just a minute. This understanding process is called insight. Why are we doing this whole thing? Why are we engaging in this whole process? Is because we have to make the client understand about the intellectual part and of the emotional part of the client's main problems. If the client understands all that, we tell or we can term that the client has gained insight. There are two types: emotional insight, which means the client understands the emotional part. Again, taking our example, I'm repeating the same example because it's easy for you to connect. Okay, in our example, the aggressive feelings, the emotional, hostility that the person had towards the father, if they can really understand it, if they can accept it in the emotional manner, then that is emotional insight. And if they can think about it, if they can find rational, not rational, if they can find logical reasons, they can think in a rational way about it, then that is intellectual insight. If they have gained more information about it, if they can think in an intellectual manner about it, that is, if they can understand about that concept, about their own feelings, about their thought patterns based on these childhood trauma, then that is called intellectual insight. Okay, so when they reach emotional intellectual insight, it's time to terminate the therapy. It means that the person has understood the problems, person has resolved the problems, and they have gained emotional and intellectual insight, and finally they have become a psychologically healthy person. And as I told you on day one, this is not a very simple process as we can confine it into a simple flowchart like this. It's not like that. And we also already discussed that it might take so many years for psychodynamic oriented therapies. Okay. Okay. Quickly read the rest of the portion and we'll stop.
The intellectual understanding is pre-intellectual insight. The emotional understanding, acceptance of one's irrational reaction to the unpleasant events of the past, and the willingness to change emotionally as well as making the change is emotional insight. Insight
You
is
can
the end.
underline emotional insight and intellectual insight. Okay. Stop. Stop. Enough. Meghna, did you read today? Okay, read.
Insight is the end point of therapy as the client has gained a new understanding of herself or himself. In turn, the conflicts of the past, defense mechanisms, and physical symptoms are no longer present, and the client becomes a psychologically healthy person. Psychoanalysis is terminated at this stage.
Terminated means we stop the therapy. One fine day, you cannot just tell them that, okay, tomorrow onwards, no need to come. That's not a way to terminate any form of therapy. Okay, if the client is coming, then you have to give them clues from prior to the final session that we are coming to an end to the sessions, we are coming to an end of our therapy, it's almost time to terminate, so we'll have only a few more session. After this you can hold the review session, that is a follow-up session after this, that can be done. Now, duration of treatment, we have already discussed that, just read up.
Duration of treatment. Psychoanalysis lasts for several years with 1 hour session for 4 to 5 days per week. It is an intense treatment. There are 3 stages in the treatment. Stage 1 is the initial phase. The client becomes familiar with the routines, establishes a therapeutic relationship with the analyst, and gets some relief with the process of recollecting the superficial materials from the conscious about the past and present troublesome events. Stage 2 is the middle phase, which is a long process. It is characterized by transference, resistance on the part of the client, and confrontation and classification, that is, working through on the therapist's part. All these processes finally lead to insight. The third phase is the termination phase, wherein the relationship with the analyst is dissolved and the client prepares to leave the therapy.
Okay, understood? It might last for 4 to 5 years, and it can be conducted for 1 hour per week, 1 hour for 4 to 5 days per week. Okay, so you can imagine how much effort is needed from the part of the client as well as the therapist. So that's what happens. We have completed psychodynamic oriented therapies. And next we'll start with behavior therapy, which is more interesting and more applicable in present day life. Okay. Yeah. Any doubt in psychodynamic? So all these terms you have to be familiar with. You have to understand. Then only you can learn the definition or you can write on your own. All these things you have to write it from whatever you understand, from your own insight, intellectual insight. Okay. Remember insight learning? koala, chimpanzee, sultan, aha experience, reaching for banana, connecting sticks. Remember? Okay. So in that, what was insight? Finding a solution or understanding that mechanism. That was the insight. Here, what is the insight? Again, it is understanding, but it's more sophisticated than the other one. Here it is intellectual and emotional insight, which is gaining insight into your own problems, becoming aware of yourself. That is the thing. And resolving your intrapsychic conflicts. That is the ultimate goal of this gaining insight. Okay? So please read up this portion. Otherwise, you'll lose the connection for sure. It has taken so many years for people like me to understand psychodynamic in at least with this clarity. So your situation is again questionable. I can understand. So read up. Okay, we'll start the next portion from next class onwards. And when do we have the next class?
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow. Okay. Take the last chapter. Next oral test will be for depressive disorders, bipolar disorders. 2 are enough. Just before schizophrenia, you have a point. Goals for the students should be specific, measurable, achievable, relevant to be completed within a relevant time frame. Till that, you have to study. Just 2 section, depressive and bipolar related. Okay? Okay, fine. Thank you.